Welcome to SAT TV News. I am Larry Larrock, your presenter. In our top stories, attorney raised concerns with new DPP for Dominica. Obama extends U.S. trade sanctions on Cuba. 1,200 missing in Colorado flooding. And in sports, new first vice president for DFA. Details of these will follow. Welcome back. Subsequent to a week-long training, 30 individuals from various communities are more prepared for responding to disaster response situations. The objective of the Community Emergency Response Team CERT was to cultivate a cadre of volunteers who were competent in supporting the program. The volunteers were presented with their certificates at the graduation ceremony at the Office of Disaster Management on Friday, September 13, 2013. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Mr. Steve Hyacinth, informed the graduates that emergency response on the ground is critical to ensuring safety at a community level.
If something is happening in your community, don't sit back when you can lend a hand. And I'm certain you have gleaned this from your training, because it has equipped you to be what I term the first responder at your community level in times of disaster. I'm certain that what you have learned here can be put into practice. The practical experiences that you have gone through will enable you to react with quick time to something that is happening in your country, in your community, that requires your attention.
Meanwhile, Mr. Don Corrier, Director of the Office of Disaster Management, urged the participants to help strengthen the resilience and response at a community level.
I urge you to remain true to your commitment and to strive to realize your expectations. That is your words. Okay? Therefore, go out there and be ambassadors in comprehensive disaster management, community development, and to national security. I urge you to join your community disaster committees in your area and to make a difference.
In addition, members also received training on introduction to disaster services, mass care, shelter, and operations, as well as shelter simulations. In more news, several activities were recognized throughout the island as part of Caribbean Wellness Day. One of the activities included a forum on the Vekas playing field under the theme, Love That Body, Keep It Bubbling. Mrs. Yvonette Anatole, in her welcome remarks, stated, with the increase of chronic diseases, it is important that we love and appreciate our bodies. She suggested, by feeding our bodies properly, by decreasing salt intake and increasing our intake of daily water instead of sodas. Mrs. Anatole said, as health professionals, they cannot do it on their own. Therefore, she is urging each individual to take responsibility for their own health. Principal of the Vekas Primary School, Mr. J. Royer, gave the audience a few health pointers that he practices. He explained that the first thing one needs to do in order to maintain a healthy body and lifestyle is to love God and pray.
Our body is inextricably linked to our soul and our spirit. If you have a healthy soul, you have a healthy spirit, then you have a healthy body. Somebody would have said amen if we were in church. But amen really means so be it. I agree. Right? Okay, so you love God and you pray. Make that a daily exercise. My granny prayed. We used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and she used to roll that rosary, trust me, till 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and I know a lot of our older folks, they are praying persons.
He added that a positive attitude also helps in the development of a healthy body. Look at the things in a positive light. Some people are too grumpy and complain too much, he said. Mrs. Adora Tuse, health educator, during the overview of the Caribbean Wellness Day activity, said the heads of government agreed on action points that address major risk factors like NCDs. They also further declared the second Saturday in September to be observed as Caribbean Wellness Day.
Thus, the second Saturday in September of each year has been observed as Caribbean Wellness Day. The goal of Caribbean Wellness Day was and still is to reduce the burden of NCDs by addressing the identified risk factors with the hope that the region's population would be stimulated enough to pay attention to these risk factors and the efforts and begin and effectively change their lifestyle habits, which would influence the prevention of and assist in managing NCDs. The objective was to always use a population-based approach so that all districts and regions would get the opportunity to get involved in Caribbean Wellness Day activities and maintain that thrust throughout the year.
Dominica first observed Caribbean Wellness Day on September 13, 2008. This was a call for action for everyone to recognize the need to manage their dietary habits, increase their levels of physical activity, and decrease or cease alcohol and tobacco use. Following the forum, some of the activities included needle and thread, sack, lime and spoon, and bottle balancing races, amongst others. The Dominica State College hosted an orientation with the largest freshman class in the history of the Dominica State College on Monday, September 16th. At the opening ceremony held at the Arac House of Culture, President of the Dominica State College, Dr. Donald Peters, said, "This recognition is not only good for the college, but for the country." Dr. Peters said this means more people within the country are being educated. The college can transfer students anywhere across the world. There is no university in the world that rejects our credits, he said. Dr. Peters said the curriculum is developed across national boundaries. Therefore, individuals need to be assured that when they enter the Dominica State College, they are placed properly.
And today, you started later than most of your colleagues all over the world. We are a couple late, but you'll catch up with them. And again, you need to know something about colleges. You have to do 49 hours to get your credits. And you have to go to school for 15 weeks. The same thing in State University of New York, Metropolitan in England, the London School of Economics. That is how you get the credits. Everything we do at State College is the same as they do everywhere in the world. That is why we want to teach you to be a global citizen. If you notice, we started this meeting on time. That's one of the things I want to teach you when you come to State College. It will be on time.
Being late for college classes is not okay, he stressed, reminding the participants that they are no longer in secondary school. Only 8% of our society in Dominica obtains higher education, he said. However, hopes that by 2014, this will increase to 11%. He assured the newcomers that college is not a frightening place. It is an institution where one learns to be tolerant and civil to their professors and other staff. The president reiterated that the college is a place of learning. Therefore, it is significant that the freshmen understand the rules of the college.
The rules is we want you to be able to succeed and we want you to be able to learn. Because as I just mentioned, if only 8% of the population of Dominica have access to higher education, and you're from Tebow or Montwatchet or Castlebrose, that means when you go back to your community, if you're a college student and you behave the same way that the hood rats behave, then we wasted our time. So we want you to learn. We want to create an environment where you learn to do things. Student services is important because the math, chemistry, physics are all important, but to teach you to be a citizen is what we are most concerned about. So I hope you will help us do that.
Dr. Peters touched on several other pointers that the freshmen should be aware of, including deadlines. Education Minister Honorable Peter Seja said the foundation of any civilization is based on a solid education. He told the students that it is important to note that they are entering the college at a time when the government is currently placing a premium on the delivery of quality education in the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Quality education is an absolute necessity. First of all, you need to understand and recognize that a high school certification is inadequate in view of the fact that we live in changing times, not only here in Dominica, but throughout the region, where the talk of the day is on the Caribbean single market and economy, the free movement of professionals and skilled individuals.
The minister noted that if we do not take the issue of quality education seriously, we may be pushed out of the most prestigious jobs here in Dominica. This year, the Dominica State College is experiencing a tremendous change. Roughly 740 students have signed up for entry.
This, to my mind, is significant, for never before in the history of our beloved country have we seen such increase in numbers for students here in Dominica at higher education. It means that you understand and have caught the vision of the government of Dominica that by 2015 we are aspiring to have, and we are well on our way to achieving, one college, university graduate per household in the Commonwealth of Dominica. This, my friends, can be achieved or will be achieved through our scholarship programs, through the government's assistance program for higher education, and of course, Dr. Peters, very importantly, through the Dominica State College.
According to the minister, the DSC has become the most important institution in the Commonwealth of Dominica. In other news, on Friday, August 9th, SAT TV broke the news that Guyanese national Mr. Kurt De Freitas was the man selected to fill the vacancy of Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP of Dominica. This post was left vacant when Mr. Jean Pestina demitted that position in July of this year in accordance with the Commonwealth of Dominica. During Mr. Pestina's absence, former United Workers' Party UWP Senator Mr. Julian Prevost filled the position as acting DPP for a 3-month term. On Wednesday, August 20th, Attorney General Mr. Levi Peter announced that he would temporarily fill that post until the arrival of Mr. De Freitas on August 31st. In light of these developments, prominent attorney Mr. Tiani Bianzin is of the view that this process of appointing a new DPP has been a total mess.
We asked the government point blank, how old is Mr. Kurt De Freitas, who is the proposed candidate for the post of DPP? Now, we made it clear that if Mr. Pestina, in fact he was actually interviewed some weeks ago, left at 65, and that is now the prescribed age, having a change from Act 21 of 1994, I think it is, sorry, 1984. Why would the government not attempt to find out or clarify or confirm the age of the new candidate? So what we did is we carried out a search, and it's very easy to do this. You go on the site and you'll find the information on him. And if you look at his his CV, you look at his academic profile, you look at his work profile, you will see that this is a gentleman of some considerable age. So we estimated, based on the time he went to school, time he went to law school and so on, and the time at actual, work itself, employment itself, various jurisdictions, two things we noticed. One, he really acted in terms of prosecuting when he was probably in Montserrat. Everything else was probably more in the civil sphere.
Mr. De Freitas, he said, is certainly qualified for the position. However, there are doubts about his adequate experience for the job and whether or not he is of age to constitutionally qualify to be Dominica's DPP.
Now, we estimated, based on our research, that his age is somewhere between 66 to about 72. And based on the information we have, we believe his age is about 68 going on 69. Now, if that's the case, we have a serious crisis in the sense that we have been told, and we're talking to people, those in the legal fraternity, the High Court judges must have heard it. We don't know whether there's communication back and forth from the Attorney General's office, but they would have alerted the court as to the position of the Director of Public Prosecution.
This had to be communicated as the September 2013 criminal assizes begins on Tuesday, September 17th.
Now, if we are told that this individual is already appointed, it means that constitutionally he cannot be appointed if he is past the prescribed age, which is now 65. And we're saying it's 60, 68 going on 69. And what the government needs to do is come to the nation and basically qualify what is the age of the proposed candidate, Mr. Kurt De Freitas. Is he under the prescribed age of 65, or is he, as we say, above it, and therefore cannot be appointed constitutionally? And therefore, the government have to introduce legislation in Parliament to ensure that his appointment could be made effective and constitutional. The issue with this is that they have almost no time to do this. They'd have to call Parliament, special session, and actually pass that legislation. The next question would be is if they would do this for somebody who's already 3 years older than Mr. Pestana. Again, we estimate, and we stand to be corrected if necessary, if alternative information is produced. If Mr. Pestana was 65 and left, and this one is actually 3 years older than Mr. Pestana, why didn't we change the legislation to allow Mr. Pestana to sit if we're going to have to do the same thing if we insist on putting a Kurt De Freitas? It seems to be a complete mess.
According to Mr. Biantin, this unnecessary crisis could have been averted had there been proper planning by the government, who should have known when Mr. Pestana would reach the age of 65, in which he would then by law have to demit office. He stressed that it is unfair to the legal fraternity for this crisis to remain unclarified before the September criminal assizes begins, when there was adequate time to have this issue resolved.
Government has two QCs on tow. They have two state attorneys in the DPP's office. They have countless others in the AG's office and others in the Solicitor General's office, although I don't believe we have a Solicitor General in post. And then we have some in legal aid. So the government has possibly almost 12 lawyers at its disposal, and I can't understand why we're here at this crisis. It is unacceptable for members of the bar, those who are the criminal bar, to be subjected to this kind of confusion. Yes, the AG could be appointed temporarily, as he suggested to us, for a few months while this other candidate, sorts out his arrangements to be able to come here and take up the post. But if there's a constitutional problem, then we have an issue. It means that there's other ethical consideration. Are we saying that the Attorney General should sit permanently as a DPP, as a Director of Public Prosecution? Are we saying that he should sit both because he's able to do so constitutionally under Section 71(3)? Surely that cannot be an ideal situation. If it's a temporary stopgap and a kind of emergency, we can understand that. But is this a temporary thing if again we have another crisis because the prescribed age is what we suggest it may be? So the government need to come forward and tell us clear. Is this gentleman 62? Is he 63? What is he? We say 68.
The Attorney General's priority is to protect the state, and having him as the acting DPP will most certainly present problems for the legal fraternity, he concluded.
It's not the people, it's not the house, it's the vibes that coming out from that speaker, the one that you love so much. Is that old speaker that causing that same speaker? say that old speaker it have a crack. That beer speaker rock attack. No people walking out, people staying out. Throw that speaker out, make it hush it mouth. Listen to the song they singing. The worst speaker, the worst speaker, the worst speaker ever in this song.
This was a theme song of the United Workers' Party on Friday, September 13th in Lago Rosso, when supporters congregated in large numbers to celebrate Mrs. Alex Boyd Knight's withdrawal for a nomination for presidency. A number of party officials were present at the celebration, where several political, economic and social issues on the development of Dominica were discussed. Candidate for the Mao constituency, Mr. Ronnie Isidore told supporters that they have the power to constitute the changes that they want to see happen in the country.
You heard your political leader tell you that the power in people is greater than the people in power. And I say to you tonight that your success is a decision away. Your success has to do with the decisions that you make minute by minute to continue this walk of change in this country.
UWP trustee and member of parliament for the Rosso Central constituency, Mr. Norris Prevost advised the crowd to stand up for democracy, stand up for better Dominica and vote carried out. The newly elected leader of the opposition United Workers' Party, Mr. Lennox Linton, noted the party has not taken any final decision on a nominee for president of Dominica.
Jennifer Wallace Laffour meets the qualifying criteria for the presidency as set out in the Constitution. We will support her, but she must satisfy us that she's so qualified. I don't know whether she satisfies Skerrit and company, but satisfy us, because when we jointly nominate, we are accepting the responsibility for what we have nominated.
The government's nominee is former permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, Mrs. Jennifer Wallace Laffour. Former political leader Mr. Edison James says his party will guarantee that it is always standing on the side of the Constitution in an effort to protect the rights of the people of Dominica. Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, in his address at the Dominica Labour Party DLP Delegates Conference on Sunday, September 15th at Point Michel, said his aim is to create employment opportunities specifically for the youth.
My undertaking to you is to continue to create and seek out employment opportunities for young people in particular. I hope to be in a position before the end of this month to announce the creation of at least 500 new jobs for young Dominicans. I will not jump the gun here this afternoon, but I assure you that all the preparatory work has been done. The government of Dominica has done everything in its power to make this happen, and it is now for the board of directors of one of the largest employment companies in America to give the green light for this company to set up shop in Dominica.
He told the delegates of the DLP to begin discussions on the appropriateness of contenders for the office of the Prime Minister.
I want it now to join in the real conversation on the requirements for the nomination of a candidate for Prime Minister. I call on other key opinion shapers in the country to do the same. I want to hear from the business community. I want to hear from civil society. I want to hear from the church. I want to hear from the legal profession. And I want to hear especially from Sir Brian Alleyne, from the various talk show hosts, and from the dozens who regularly call in on the radio programs on what, in your view, are the eligibility requirements for the post of Prime Minister in modern-day Dominica.
The DLP's aim is to focus on the elections of a Prime Minister in the not-too-distant future.
Elections are not as near as some believe. We have some more work to do. I am concerned, for example, about a number of young college and graduate students whom the system is not quite helping at this time. We must facilitate their entry into the productive sectors of our economy. The government will shortly be outlining initiatives geared at helping to build and sustain a new and emerging middle tier in this country. Education is important. Education is vital. The United Workers' Party said clearly 2 weeks ago that education is a waste of time. That you do not need to be educated to thrive and succeed. That's what the Workers' Party is saying. We in the Labour Party sees things differently. We have educated our young people, and in the remaining months of this term and the next, we will work hard at integrating them into the social and economic life of Dominica.
Meanwhile, leader of the Antiguan Labour Party, Gaston Brong, commended the Dominica government for investing in the Caribbean airline Liat.
He committed his government to take up shareholding in Liat, while others unjustifiably sat on the sidelines, content to benefit from its service, but selfishly refusing to contribute to its service delivery. This is a typical example where the commitment and practice of some Caribbean leaders is incongruent to the espoused commitment of Caribbean integration.
A resolution to re-elect the entire executive of the Dominica Labour Party was also implemented on Sunday unopposed. In more news, what was supposed to be the Dominica Labour Party Delegates Conference for long-standing supporters to be recognized turned into a character assassination revelry on Sunday, September 15th. During the gathering, Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit and other ministers of his party used much of their time in addressing supporters to attack members of the opposition, in particular the newly elected leader of the United Workers' Party, UWP, Mr. Lennox Linton, who was the victim of numerous accusations. However, Mr. Linton responded saying Mr. Skerrit's accusations do not have any truth to them and is a total fabrication of lies to take advantage of the people he can misguide. He has not put forward any evidence to support these accusations, he said.
Mr. Skerrit has to stop this, Mr. Skerrit has to stop taking Dominicans for fools. Mr. Skerrit has to stop believing that he's going to get into office again and again and again by telling lies and by taking advantage of people he considers to be stupid.
He continued saying, talk of Mr. Edison James receiving late-night phone calls and hosting meetings with colonizers along with myself are totally untrue. The public need to ask Mr. Skerrit to present the evidence of the accusations he is making.
Mr. Skerrit makes the wild accusation that some $3.something million US has been passed to the United Workers' Party. For what purpose? Where did it come from? When $400,000 came into the campaign of the Labour Party from Susan Oldie in the Cayman Islands back in 2004-2005, the evidence was presented, in terms of the transfers and the movement that money went through. Bank of Butterfield, Chase Manhattan, etc., etc., to arrive down here at Royal Bank and then to be transferred at the National Bank. Where is the evidence of what Mr. Skerrit is talking about? And this just underlines the recklessness of the gentleman and the fact that he's totally unsuitable for the office of Prime Minister. With all this talk about qualification, you want to tell me that you go to your delegates convention of 2013, and in your delegates convention of 2013, your singular focus is one man who you consider to be unsuitable for the position of leadership of the United Workers' Party, your political opponent?
According to Mr. Linton, the Prime Minister keeps shifting the goalposts, as 6 months ago he told Dominicans to prepare for early elections, when at the delegates conference he said general elections are not as close as we may think, as there are some things that need to be completed. The opposition leader is of the view that Mr. Skerrit is running scared and he must leave the standard at which he governs, as he has been Prime Minister for over 10 years. I will keep myself out of the gutter politics, and whenever I have the opportunity, I will try my best to uplift the Dominicans with hope and what is truly possible for them.
We diagnosed the situation facing Dominica during our delegates convention, and we placed on the record a clear approach in terms of how the problems that confront us can be addressed. The problems of development. Mr. Skerrit obviously had no counter to that. He had no answer for it. And I'm left to believe that he is now accepting the plans and approach put on the table by the United Workers' Party in our delegates convention as the way forward for Dominica.
Mr. Linton added, Mr. Skerrit is in no position to talk about qualifications as he as Prime Minister relies on advisors to make his decisions. In other news, Dominica continues to work feverishly in its efforts to save the mountain chicken from extinction after its numbers began to decline when the species was infected with a fungus disease back in 2002. According to Mr. Luke Harding, a volunteer with the Zoological Society of London, ZSL, who is currently on island working with the Forestry, Wildlife and Parks Division in their efforts to save the mountain chicken, this project is very important.
The mountain chicken is now a critically endangered species. It was once a national dish and incredibly important to Dominica culturally. It was on the coat of arms, and it was also the logo of the National Bank, or also known as the Crapu Bank back in the day. So the mountain chicken incredibly important. But unfortunately, on 2002, the first report of an amphibian fungal disease called chytrid mycosis was seen on Dominica. This fungus disease is estimated to have wiped out 80% of the mountain chicken population in just 18 months. This took the frog from being abundant on Dominica to being critically endangered.
This disease is a global threat to amphibians. It does not affect all amphibians, but unfortunately the mountain chicken is one of those affected. The collaboration with the ZSL and the Forestry and Wildlife and Park Division began in 2005 when they immediately commenced work to save the mountain chicken. The project consists of 3 areas: monitoring, tracking and conducting health checks on the wild mountain chickens on the island. They are also studied for breeding patterns while testing for the presence of the fungus disease.
As well as doing that, another part of our work that we do is we have a captive breeding facility here in the Botanical Gardens in Roseau, run by the Forestry Department. And the idea of this facility is we've got 11 adult frogs in the facility, and our hope is to breed these frogs, and then we will use the offspring to release into the wild and hopefully help to boost the population of mountain chickens to help a recovery. It also acts as a safeguard because it allows us some frogs in the facility that we can treat and keep on top of so that they don't come under threat from the fungus. The final part of what we do here in regards to the Mountain Chicken Project is the outreach element. So we do that by hosting public events such as a mountain chicken hike that we did last week and Mountain Chicken Day that's coming up tomorrow. So the idea of our activities is to help build awareness.
The idea of these activities is to help build awareness. Interested persons can also find important information needed to help with the project on their Facebook page, Dominica Mountain Chicken Project. Mr. Harding explained aside from the fungus affecting the mountain chicken, it faces other challenges including poor land management, the use of pesticides and other chemicals, with the main one being illegal hunting.
As we all know, the mountain chicken was once the national dish here and was quite a popular national dish. People enjoyed eating it. And we do get reports that the mountain chicken is still being hunted and eaten. There is really not enough frogs left to be hunted and eaten. So we must stress that if anyone is doing this, or if anyone knows anyone who is, then please tell them to stop. Or if they won't, do contact Wildlife, Forestry and Parks Division and tell us so that we can help stop them, because there really isn't enough frogs left. And if we don't act now to save the mountain chicken, we'll never have the chance. And these frogs can't recover while human pressure's going on. Also on the use of land management, people are using a lot more pesticides and stuff. And one of the reasons you're seeing an increase in pests is because of the lack of mountain chickens. An adult frog can eat up to 100 crickets and insects a week on his own. And if you imagine how many mountain chickens used to be on Dominica, you can understand now why we're seeing such a big increase in pest species. So it's really important. And one of the key things for our project to say is, the fungus is still around, so these frogs still have enough to deal with them. But the people of Dominica and as an island, we need to come together and work together to save this species.
Mr. Harding said, and I quote, "If we all work to save the species, one day we will be able to see them in abundance like we once did and possibly retake its position as national dish for Dominica while being protected for future generations." Currently, mountain chickens can only be found in 2 islands in the world, Dominica and Montserrat. Dominica is said to be in a much better position to revive these species, as Montserrat it is believed to have only 10 on island, while Dominica's population is estimated at 70 to 80. Juveniles were also found in the wild in 2002 and was viewed as a positive sign of growth. However, if humans continue to pollute the environment and illegally hunt the mountain chicken, recovery will not be possible.
So we only got the frogs in the facility a year ago. Some of the frogs were quite young and some were adult. This year we've seen the first signs of breeding. Our males are calling, our females have started producing foam nests. It doesn't quite look like we may get there this year because the frogs are too young, but this is fantastic steps and will almost certainly lead towards, in the next few seasons, we will have baby mountain chickens at the facility.
The mountain chicken can only breed for 4 months annually, May to August. This has been the local segment of the news. Coming up next, regional highlights.